up, guys? Jeff Discher here, and you're in for a real treat today on There's a Difference. Let's go see what we have today. Hey guys, welcome back to There's a Difference podcast. Jeff Discher, I'm your host. You know what the program's about. We bring people on that have made a difference, not only in community, but in life in general. Those that stand out, those that separate themselves from the crowd. I like bringing them on, picking their brains, hearing their stories, so I can inspire and motivate you to do the same thing. Today's guest, I've known her for 20 years. We were just talking about it, and I've seen her all the way through her journey. She's seen me through all my journey. And we've kind of had each other's backs this whole time, and she's done very well for herself. I'm very proud of her. She has a beautiful family now, and I wanted to get her on the podcast so we could hear her story. So without further ado, I want to introduce Semret.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on the show. And she's at IFBB Pro Swimsuit. We'll talk about kind of that journey. But I want to start out and tell the people just first of all a little bit about yourself, and I want to go back. So I want to go back from your original country, and I want them to really know what we're dealing with here because it's an inspiring story. So tell us about your beginnings.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And
of course.
This is really exciting, and I'm proud of you. Well, as Jeff said, I am Semret, Russom, and originally I'm from Eritrea, which is East Africa, Northeast Africa, a small country called Eritrea. And I moved here when I was a teen to be with my dad. I was like 13. I turned 14 when I came to America. So, gosh, that was like crazy.
Yeah.
A huge cultural shock.
Did you come by yourself?
I came with my two other siblings,
okay,
my half siblings, to be with my dad.
And did you stay with your dad, or how'd that work out?
Well, temporary. So when I moved to America, I met my dad the first time San Diego Airport. I've never seen him in person. So he left Eritrea when I was a baby, and he knew when I was like 6 months old, but I don't remember him, just through pictures and letters. So meeting my dad for the first time was kind of like nerve-wracking.
Where was he living? Was he living?
In San Diego, yeah.
Really? Wow.
So I was so curious to see what he looked like. I don't know what he looked, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The first time seeing him, and I was like so excited at the same time nervous, but meeting him, I was like, kind of what I expected. You know, he's a strong Eritrean man, and he used to be a soldier back home. Anyway, so I moved in with my siblings, and he is remarried with his new wife and family. And unfortunately, things didn't work out, and my dad wasn't able to take care of us. And so we stayed probably, I'd say, maybe less than a year with him.
Okay.
And, you know, we had some abuse that happened to me and my sister, and we were going to school to learn English when we moved here. In class, my sister and I, we were very eager to learn English. We want to know everything. So we always sat in front of a class, this ESL class. Our teacher, her name is Betty Bowl. We were the only black kids in the class. They were Hispanic, maybe Islanders, but no other black kids.
Did you know English at that point?
No.
Wow, okay.
So, but we just like, I remember just feeling like, am I ever going to understand this language? And my sister and I would talk in, you know, my language, Tigrinya, and we would say to each other, I'm like, this is hard. What is, but we really want to know what she was saying. And so we sat in front. In our culture, teachers are very respected. And so we were very respectful. We were taught to respect elderly, especially your teacher. You honor them. And so when you see your teacher, you're like, you have to be respectful. And so we were very quiet, whatever she said, we follow. But we also noticed American kids, they were so bad. And we were like, how are they so disrespectful to her? We couldn't understand the cultural difference. So anyways, we end up, she really noticed us because we were always asking questions. We were learning like colors and all the things that you learn when you're, you know, young. For us, we have to do it all over, you know, from the beginning, ABCs and all those things. And we were always curious, and she noticed us, and we would come to class, and eventually, like, the abuse kind of, you know, didn't it was uncomfortable for us to live at home, and my dad even threatened to send us back to Eritrea, and we didn't know. We were teenagers. We didn't know what to do, and she noticed that we'll come to class. We're not as excited and wanting to know, but we were worried about what we have to be doing when we get home. And it was tough, you know, having my mom, who was like my protector, and he promised her the world that he'll, you know, take care of me, and that didn't happen. So eventually our teacher noticed that we were not doing good, as we, you know, she noticed the difference. So one day she brought somebody who spoke our language to translate for us. And in our culture, you don't tell anyone your problem. That's like a no-no. That's just a taboo. We told her, no, we don't have any problem. Then, you know, the guy who she brought, one of our friend, his dad is a friend with my dad, and we were scared. Like, what if he's gonna tell on us? And we just didn't want, we knew we needed help, but we were scared. Then eventually he came, he's like, I want to help you. Just tell me what's going on. She really wants to help you guys. And so we told him, and I remember she gave us, I think it's 25 cents to call, payphone, and her phone number. And she says, if you ever needed anything, just call me and I'll come pick you up at this library on North Park Boulevard, you know, that public library. We live in that area. So we were like, wow, this is crazy. And then my sister just kind of, I was very shy, like very, very timid back then. And so she kind of like said, we need to do this. This is our only way to escape. If we don't want to move with him to Seattle, which he was moving, if we want to stay here in America, we have to make changes. So we called her, and of course one morning, he just like, get out of my house, and we were teens, so where do we go? We have no family, we don't speak English, we have no one, right?
Yeah.
We were basically on the street, so we had to call her, and she came pick us up. To make the story short, she ended up taking us in, and we were raised by, now you know, my mom, Betty. So
oh,
yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
I've never heard that whole part of it at the beginning about the school and everything, but it's inspiring. We'll fast forward. So you finished high school. Where'd you go to high school?
San Diego High.
San Diego High, right down the street.
Yep.
So you went to school there. I know that. And the first time I met Semret was at 24-Hour Fitness.
Yeah.
So back in 2000, which is 20 years ago, I was a 20-something, 3-year-old, 22-year-old. Yeah. Trainer that started there. I was there already, and then all of a sudden I see Semret working there, and she was a front desk. We're all kind of in the same little area. The thing about Semret, though, is she was very serious. And what I mean by that is, you know, the whole respect thing you talk about, coming from Africa and all that stuff. It showed up right away, and she had an accent, a really thick accent, and I'm a joker. I'm a class clown, if everyone knows who I am. And so I would make fun, mess with her, and make fun of her accent, but at the same time, she was very serious. Like everyone else, you could play with them, play jokes, and they'd laugh and everything. But Semret, if you tried playing a joke and she didn't get it because she didn't, she would just look at you all strange and check you real quick. Like, what do you talk? Don't you ever talk to me like that? And she was young then. We were 21.
I was 19 when I worked there, yeah.
And I used to mess with, like, joke around with everybody, and she was not having it. I just remember after that, like, she got so serious with me, and she's like, don't you ever talk to me like that, and you, like, went off on this thing. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. And I feel like ever since then, though, like, you know, I had obviously a respect for you. We had a mutual respect. Yeah. And then I ended up getting my real estate license, and you would always ask me because you were always very eager to learn. I remember that clearly, that you were always eager to learn. You always wanted to better yourself. You're always talking about growing and what your plans were and what you wanted to do. And you would always ask me, even back then, what should I do, Jeff? What should I do, Jeff? What should I do? And then I ended up leaving 24-Hour Fitness, where we were at. And I went on to start my real estate career, which is almost 20 years ago, because we worked together for like 2 years, I think, 3 years. Yeah. And even after I did that, I remember you were telling me that you were going to start going to school to become a nurse. You were going to work at the hospital. That was your goal. And I'm just kind of telling our story real quick so we can get fast forward through. And then I remember you started doing your nursing. Yeah. And you were doing your nursing, and you were working out back then. And I'm not sure, you were working out hard though, because I remember you were going to the gym back then. I just don't know when you started your transition and going so serious, because I remember seeing you at the gym one day after, and you were super serious. Yeah. And I remember you nursing, and let's talk about that. Let's just do a brief snippet about you getting into nursing and how that all took place.
Well, before that, I had my hair business. Do you remember that?
Was that before nursing?
Yes.
Oh my God, I thought I was going to bring that in after. So she did. She had her own. Let's talk about that real quick. So she's 19, And I remember that was one of your things. You were doing hair, I think, on the side. Then you
Yes.
had talked about opening your own place.
Yes.
How'd that happen?
So, I mean, I love being an entrepreneur and I love creating, but I've always, back home, everyone owned their own business. And that's always been my dream, even when I was a little girl, to just do things that I love. And hair was one of the things that I loved. And so I remember one day I was like, I'm going to open my own salon. I have no idea like what business is. I have no business background, nothing, but I know what I want.
I remember you telling me that. That was one thing about you. You were fearless. Like you would tell me, Jeff, I'm going to open my own salon.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, Semret. And I'm not saying that I doubted you, but like I was, at that time, I'm like working for, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like,
Yeah.
and you, there was no deviation. There was no questioning, no fear. You were just like, I'm going to do it. You'll see. Everyone's going to see.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. You'll see.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you hit me up one time. You're like, Hobbit, come see my new place.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I remember I was passed by, it was on alcohol, and it's still there, by the way.
Yep.
And I passed by this store. It says for rent, the small place. And I was like, oh, I want to call this person and see if they would take. I had no business license, nothing, no chair, but I just knew what I wanted. And the guy was like, apply, and I'll let you know. Of course, he calls me. He's like, you got it. And I was like, oh, I need to get everything that needs for a salon, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I had a temporary, one chair, and I started with one chair, and I waited for my equipment to come almost like 2 months. And, but I knew, even my mother who raised me here, my sisters are like, how come you're not afraid to open? And I was like, unless I try it, I never knew.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see if I could do it. And then I started with one chair, and of course I opened up, and I was there for almost like 12, 15 years.
I know.
And I loved every single part of, I still love hair. Like that's just, one of my passions. But yeah, I opened, I worked that, and then,
You had like 10 jobs. When she told me she was
I
from Africa, I thought she was from Jamaica for a minute
You
because
always told me that.
I'm like, what are you, Jamaican? Because another thing about Semret, you guys, it's really cool. And that back in the day, I was like, whatever. Is that she doesn't drink alcohol, smoke, nothing. Like nothing goes in. But she'd have 10 jobs, and I was like, okay, maybe that's where she's consuming her time.
Yeah.
Which again, the whole alcohol and all that stuff, that was another respect. I'm like, wow, she's not doing it. And back then, you used to always yell at me like, Hobbit, you're drinking too much.
Yeah.
Because I'd be out drinking and partying, having fun. Hobbit, stop all that. Stop all that. That's gonna ruin you. You're doing so well. Why? And now, looking back in hindsight, kind of what you're, we had obviously two different paths. I mean, I come from a rough background too. Obviously, nothing like what you did. However, I remember you telling me that, and I'd be like, oh. And now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, so much respect, because it's so easy, especially you coming here, to get caught up in with that, with the American lifestyle and all that. Yeah. And you didn't. You were literally, I remember stopping by a few times. You'd always be there, working, proud, happy. Your clients were happy. You had other stylists there with you.
Yes.
They were happy. Yeah. So that was just one thing. And again, this is all coming back to adversity, right, guys? So coming from Africa, coming over here, going through, meeting with her dad that was abusive, getting adopted by her teacher. That all worked out, graduated, started her hair salon. What made you get into nursing?
Well, it was one of the things that growing up, I love helping people. And I was like, maybe I'll do good on helping people. What a best way to do things, to help sick people and to encourage them to just, and I was like, I want to try it. So I was taking classes, and I became a nurse assistant, and I worked at UCSD, and I loved every single part of it. And it was one of the greatest things I've ever done, honestly, to see someone on the lowest and to be able to like comfort someone. And part of it was rewarding, and part of it was really hard for me because I'm so sensitive, and I took everything home. So every time I lose a patient, I would call my mom crying, like, I wish I could do this. I wish I can help them from, dying, or just, you feel so connected. And so it showed me that life is so short working in a hospital, and that I don't take nothing for granted, even more. Even before I was that way, but it made me even more be like so grateful for every single day that I have on this earth, because there is somebody losing their lives as we speak.
Right now,
so,
yeah.
I just feel blessed, and that was amazing. And then after I worked in the hospital, I was still taking classes to pursue, my actual real nursing career. And then I was doing bodybuilding, and my passion, as always, like I love fitness, but
So real quick, because we're going to jump into that, but what year do you think is it when you made that switch in your mind? It's almost like a modern day Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. Like you literally come here from another country, you start your nursing, you do that. You start your hair business, you do that. And now, I don't know when it was, but I remember seeing you down at 24 Horton Plaza. At what point did you make that switch and realize you wanted to become?
So I remember, I was married and got divorced, and I said to myself that I needed something that's going to make me not ever be that low ever again. And
we can't even talk about all that, but that's like a whole other crazy thing that would even bring this story that would even be crazier, but we'll leave that out. But there's another whole incident that is crazy.
So it just, right there, and I used the gym to kind of like, release stress, and that was my escape because, I don't drink and smoke, and that was my happy place, was to work out. And I remember a few guys, some of them. I went to Africa, to visit my mother. And I came back. I saw this guy that I knew who was big and lost a lot of weight. And I was like, what happened to you? Are you sick? He's like, no, I'm doing bodybuilding. I was like, what is bodybuilding? And he was like, Sam, oh my God, you're so good. You're always here at the gym. You should do bikini. And I was like, what? I'm not going to be a big guy like you. I don't want to, So the first thing that comes to my mind doing bodybuilding is like, I don't want to be huge. That's like, no. He's like, no. There's a new division called bikini. Just come a show and watch a show with me, and then you'll see. So I was like, of course, curious, and I'm like, okay, I'll come support you, and I'll watch it. I walked in, and I've never in my life seen bodybuilding in like real life, right? I've always bought the magazine Health and Fitness, but and I seen the girls, they just look so beautiful with their bikini, their body. I was like, oh, this is the magazine that I've been buying.
Yeah, I can totally see you too. Like, wait a minute, I got these people in my magazine. I can totally see it.
That was so me, and I was like, oh, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I want to sign up. What do I need to do? Of course, right?
Yep.
He was like, well, you need to talk to a coach and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, I knew I wanted. But I didn't know that bodybuilding is like a total different game, right?
It's this real sport. It's a professional. It's like saying, I'm going to go play NFL for the Chargers. That's what you basically said. They brought you to a Charger game or NFL game, and they said, hey, you have a great body for this. You're always at the field practicing throwing balls. Become an NFL player. And you showed up to Charger practice like, oh, this is the TV show I watch every weekend.
That was me, I swear. So
now, were you, sorry to interrupt, but when you were doing that, were you still nursing and hair?
So yes, I had, first of all, I support my family back home. My mom, like my dream when I came to America was like, I was basically the ticket for my family, right? Because a lot of immigrants can relate to me. When you come, especially from a poor country, you're responsible for your family to send money. So since 18, that's why I worked like, Jamaica, you see me, I was supporting my family and myself. And so I was like, okay, and able for me to sustain, like to have money for myself and my family, I had to calculate and add extra side, right?
Yep.
So I kept my business, and then I started working as a nurse, nursing, excuse me. So that way I can support my family too, because I can't just stop, right?
Yep.
I have responsibility. My siblings, my niece and nephew, I put them, school, college, whatever. And
so right there, you're doing nursing, you're doing hair, and now you decide to take on professional sport.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but then I talked to a person. They're like, "Oh, you need to diet and workout. Workout, I know, like I do it, but the diet, I was shocked."
Yeah, it's insane. That's why people say, going to the gym's the easy part.
It is the easy part. One of the hardest thing is the hardest thing is the diet, and it's so strict.
Well, and I remember you talking about it. I remember you saying, first of all, the diet itself is strict and hard, but then you had to do it while doing two different jobs. Yep. So you'd have to make the things, instead of just like what the easy route would be was go to the vending machine, grab some chips, grab a quick Subway sandwich or do something quick like that. Yeah. You still had to manage to make sure your meals were all perfectly timed out.
Oh yeah. I would work 12 hours job, and I would get up 4 o'clock in the morning, do my morning cardio, go home, shower, get ready to go to work 12 hours, and come back at night, finish my workout, because that doesn't stop, right? I still have to be.
I remember you going twice a day.
Oh yeah.
I remember that. I remember because I used to work at night. I remember coming in with my little cousin Worm, and you would be there.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, get it? And you'd be like, this is my second time. You guys better get your work. And I'm like, wait, what? And she'd be like, yeah, I've been here since 4 a.m. I came already. And now I'm coming back to I already did an hour to cardio. And we'd be like, pfft.
Yeah,
like,
it's warm and you'd be like, you crazy habits.
We're out of here. Yeah, you're crazy. And you would go on though and do a whole nother like hour workout.
I was so tunnel vision.
Focused
on like, I couldn't, if I'm going to sign up something, I couldn't lag. You know what I mean? If I miss a day, it's like, well, then it's going to show that I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I did that, and it's funny, my coworkers, they always make fun of me, like, Sam, just have a cake. You'll be fine. You're fit already. And I always say, no, one cake, one bite is going to be 45 minutes on the treadmill or Stairmaster. No, thank you.
And I want to jump in this because I think I just hear this happening with you. And now that I'm looking back in retrospect, like, I think one thing that you've had always, and I don't know if it's culturally driven or if it's just you as a person, but you have discipline. Because everything that you're talking about, like coming here, getting the job, starting the companies, not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs, and then getting into a sport it's probably one of the most disciplined sports because every piece of gum, Tic Tac, I mean, shit, you walk into a fast food and you breathe, that's calories, you know what I mean? So the discipline that you've had to not be drawn into any of it, especially like you said, coming from another country and having probably all these opportunities, seeing all these different things, all this stuff's going on. And I can only imagine how hard it was to say no to all that. I mean, discipline is a key. It's part of my book I'm writing, and it's something I talk about, discipline and habits. Yeah. But I just see that, and maybe you didn't even know what it was back then, but I know just looking back that I'm like, damn, she had so much discipline to be able to say no. Like you said, the one cake, I'll be honest, when I walk into a spot and I'm on my diet, and if I walk into a place and I see a cookie or a donut, whatever, especially if you get me in a down moment, like I haven't eaten for 4 or 5 hours, I will scarf up like 4 donuts. Immediately after, I'll feel like crap. But that discipline and that willpower throughout the day, and especially with you having these high stress jobs. I mean, I would imagine hair is pretty high stress because you gotta make the person look perfect, and their hair, if you cut, and then you have the nursing, you're responsible for people's lives. So let's get back. So when you started competing, how long until you jumped on stage?
I signed up right away, right? So it took 3 months for me to do a show, my first show.
Wow.
And I worked out, did my diet. I remember I wasn't prepared to be in front of people like half naked, right?
I know, I can only imagine.
Before that, I was so shy wearing even skirt. Like to be exposed like that, it started to hit me. And I was like, oh my God, this is a taboo. I am still Eritrean, so in our culture, it's the biggest taboo in the planet. So I was so freaked out when it got close. I remember I have a guy friend of mine, and I told him, and he was like, Sam, you're here now. You've done all the work, and he's like, just think of there's nobody there when you're on the stage. Just imagine that. But his pep talk was really, while it was great, I still had this cultural heavy things, like what I'm doing is so wrong, right? Because that's what I'm taught. Like you've seen our graph, it's like you
everything.
Cover. It's very, very modest. But right when I did the show, I did it. Of course, I was so happy. I've always worked hard for my competition, but when I came back from the stage, I remember telling myself, okay, now I did my show. Now that I expose my body to the world, I need to make sure
it's go time. Now I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
This has to be like a reason. I need to have a reason, not just to have the perfect body, but what can I do with it, right? I said to myself and to my coach, and I said, I am going to do this to represent every woman in my culture and the world, but specifically for Eritrean women, because our culture, when it comes to women, there's a lot of suppression, right? You're a woman, you can't do this. You're a woman, you can't do that. And I wanted to make a platform to empower young girls, like, in our culture, to say, hey, listen, they don't have to do bikini competition, but they can do anything, right? Despite like our culture, I still love and who I am and respect my culture. But I had to do that. I have to have a purpose for me to compete, to continue competing. And I said, okay, I want to become an IFBB pro. I want to become pro. I don't want to just do shows amateur. I need to have a goal. So that was what I did after my first show. And I said, okay, this is going to be why I'm doing it.
When your big why, which was cool too, because I remember you always the gym, you'd always come up to me and ask always business advice and stuff.
Yeah.
And you were like, Jeff, there's these girls at work and I want to help them and they're overweight and they talk about it. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you know, just have them track everything. We'd go back and forth and you'd be like so passionate about helping these people at work. Yeah. I was like, Semret, just try to take one on, do it for free, show them what you can do for them. And just by doing that one, you'll learn the ropes. They'll see all the results and you guys could spread.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I just brought that up is because, like you said, it wasn't just you getting on stage, like most people trying to be, you know, all ego driven, like, look at me, I work out. Like, it wasn't like that. You did it for personal reasons, just to prove to yourself you could do it.
Yes.
You didn't do it to, again, disrespect your culture in any way. When you found your why, though, which was kind of cool, you used that as a way, first of all, I think to discipline yourself, to get yourself in the best shape of your life, but also to use what you've done to motivate people.
Yes.
And that's kind of what. Real quick, how did your country, your culture, your people, how did they accept when they found out what you were doing? Because that's probably one of your biggest fears is how are they going to respond? How are they going to take it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, not just my people, but my own mother.
I know.
Who I love. I mean, she's my world, you know? Everything that, she's the reason why I don't drink. She's the reason why I try my best to just stay the perfect. She raised me to be a good woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was a reflection of my mother. So anything that I did, I want to make sure that she's proud of me. And then the other thing is like, okay, now, how are my people going to be? So I had to come to terms that I can't let other people stop me from what I wanted to do. So my vision is bigger than what other people's opinion or think of me. And I knew that eventually people will come to love who I am and why I'm doing it. And so, of course, pictures surfaced on internet, and I had an interview by this Eritrean guy who is known, and his name is Ma'abel. He interviewed me. At first, when I met him, when we talked on the phone, he was shocked. He was like, women is not supposed to have muscles. You can't have babies. They have all this notion about women who lift weight or exercise. And he was like, this is impossible. And so, but he interview me and I explained to him and this is what I told him. I say, Ma'abel, my people will love me. They are gonna know what it is because they've never seen it. They've never heard of bodybuilding, let alone a woman doing it, right? But I'm gonna show them that beyond like what this muscle is, that it's not just good for you, but I wanna empower them. And of course, like now, like I'm known.
Oh, I remember. I was waiting for you because I remember you saying, Habish, you almost like were crying. You're like, they love me. Yeah. You're like, my people love me. They follow me. Like, I remember you just, it gives me goosebumps because I remember you saying that and you were I remember you were scared, but then you were so excited because you're like, Habish, look, like you had so many messages and private messages and everybody was so proud of you and they loved you and embraced you.
Yeah. I mean, I get emotional because, you know, you want to do something and you want to make sure that you make your people proud, especially for me as an Eritrean woman. And it's my way of contributing to empower them, and not just empower them, but to give them hope that anything, if I can come from a small little town where it's maybe less than 1,000 people, and I never in a million years that I thought I will be here talking to you about my past, and just dream. It's a dream come true, even though like all kinds of stuff happened to me. I still feel like I'm the luckiest woman on this planet.
Because you went, yes, and it wasn't just the bodybuilding, and obviously they're like, wow, she's doing this, but it was like the whole experience. They are like, this girl moved when she was 13 years old, and not only made it and didn't get sent back or didn't whatever, but she made it. She does all, now she's certified to be a nurse. She's doing a nursing thing. She's doing her hair business. And now here she is competing. So I think it was just the whole thing versus if you just, someone flew over here, got into bodybuilding and was like, but the whole story. And what'd your mom say when you first talked to her?
I told her she's never seen or heard. She know that I always saw her working out. So she know that part. But she doesn't know what it is, like what I do exactly. I remember I went home and I took a picture of me, like printed, so to show her, this is what I look like on stage. And she almost passed out.
Did she freak out?
She was like, oh my God, you're naked.
I bet.
Then, I explained to her.
I've seen your mom because she wears a whole spiel, right? She has a whole gown on, all the African culture stuff. Yeah, she does.
Very, very mad. She's very, Orthodox Christian. Her dad is a priest. So imagine, like, I come from, like, really strict, background. And then I said, Mom, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. And then my mom says, but you've always been that little girl that I couldn't stop you from wanting to do something. I guess I've always said, I'm going to do something, and I would do it when I was younger. And she says, this is just you. And she said, I'm proud of you, and I love you as long as you're not going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That she gave me her blessing. It was from that I was like, I'm good now.
And the crazy, that's good. And the crazy thing is, you guys, Semret doesn't come from, it's kind of it's a funny joke. She doesn't come from, when you say Africa, not a big city, not like a big city that's like San Diego or anything. She comes from a small village. Mm-hmm. And I remember your husband laughing about it, and he's like, oh, no, this is not just, this is like a small village. You have, like, I don't even have running water. Like, this is like third world. Yeah. So it's not like you grew up in, I don't know, what's a big city over there? Asmara.
The capital city.
Okay, the capital. It's not like she came from a big city and her parents were both doctors and she had this easy. This is from, like, literally a place where they don't even really have cell phones, right?
It's cell phone? What are you talking about? I used to handwrite my mom.
That's what I'm saying.
I waited like 3 months for her to reply to me.
Yes.
But cell phones are in now.
Now they are, but he was even saying it's kind of restricted, and it's like, so think about that, guys. Like, this is not a joke. This is like, and that's why I was excited to have you on, because you literally went from, like, I don't want to call it homeless, but like from this.
I was homeless.
You were homeless, basically from the lowest. So I get on my team and a bunch of people because, when I try to get them to work and they see everything I have, and it's hard because people just see it and they're like, oh, Jeff, you've always been so. They see you now and they're like, oh, they assume that you've always been this perfectly shaped. You came from this and you don't. When I get really mad and passionate with my agents because I'm like, look, guys, I know I had a harder upbringing than any of you. Yeah. If I could be covered in tattoos and have all these things going on, and brothers in prison, all that. And then open this and start this whole office and do everything I've done. Like, what are you talking about? I don't want to hear it. Like, and like for you, when you probably hear someone say excuse, you're like, stop. Like, I just give me goosebumps. Like, I don't want to hear your shit because that's nothing. When you hear about some people like, well, I didn't get to do this. I didn't get a car till I was 20. And you know what I mean? Or like, I can't do that. I have to go do this, or I have to do this. And no. Like, you went through everything. Even if you took away the African descent and you were born and raised here, what you've done is magnificent, right? So like, I think so. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know many people that have done what you've done that I know that have way more opportunity than you did. Even today, I see them, they complain, you're doing better than all of them. And like, even with certain people, like, like Worm and stuff that would be like, make excuses for other things. I would be like, look at Sem though, she's doing it. Semret's got her job doing this. I mean, I talked to a bunch of people about it. I'm like, I don't want to hear excuses. Yeah. Like, you grew up in America. You had to, like,
language,
you have everything. Yeah. You came here not knowing the lick of English, learning English, doing all these things. And then eventually, let's fast forward because I want to talk real quick about that. You went through all the IFBB stuff. Oh, you didn't. I'm sorry, you're not. You're just competing. What about the story of you going to Georgia?
How about before I went to Georgia? So I, in 2017, if you remember, I told you, I was like, Habish, I'm going to compete. I think I'm going to get my pro card in Pittsburgh. I felt amazing.
Oh, that's what I thought. Remember? I thought it was Atlanta. I thought it was Georgia. Was it?
No.
Georgia's one too?
Georgia is after.
Okay. So Pittsburgh.
I went to Pittsburgh. And I was like, I felt good. My coach was like, you look amazing. Everything, like, we were good. And I was sick right before I got to the stage. I had kind of like a flu-like symptoms. And I was like, man, I'm getting tired. My immune system is probably down. And I competed. I got so sick. I came back home. 4 days later, I was in ER.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
And then, of course, the worst is that I couldn't move my body. I was completely paralyzed.
Oh, this was before you got your card.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought you got your card, came back right when then you got it. No, okay.
And I remember I was like, I never felt like I'm gonna die. I had illness, but kidney stone. I struggled for years, right? I've never felt like I'm gonna die, but that moment with this was something different. And I felt sick into my stomach to where like I might not make it feeling. And I remember I went to work, I drove myself to the hospital, and then they asked me a few minutes later to go give urine sample. I tried to get up. I couldn't do it. And so they said, oh, it's okay. We'll just wheel you to the wheelchair, to the bathroom. I did that, and I can get up from the wheelchair to give urine, too. Everything felt like out-of-body experience. It was so weird, and it was so fast, and I started having trouble breathing. Anyways, to make the story short, they had to rush me to, like, ICU and stuff like that because I was, like, losing airway, like I couldn't breathe. And anyway, so they did all kinds of tests. Of course, the first thing they think is I did drugs because I told them I'm a bodybuilder, and they did all kinds of tests.
Thought you were on steroids or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told the doctor, I was like, I don't take drugs. And so but they had to do it. And he came back, and then they said, well, everything is good. You just have the flu. The night doctor says to me, and I was like, what? So then what? She gave me something to breathe. It still didn't help. I start to feel like weaknesses in my chin, like my mouth, my hand. I couldn't feel my legs. And a young doctor, they switched doctors. She was going to send me home. And I told him this is what happened. And then he was like, I need a neurologist to come and check you out. Thank God he did that because he saved my life. Otherwise, if I was sent home, I wouldn't make it that day. And neurology came, and they took me to ICU. Everything just happened so fast. And he diagnosed me with GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, where it attacks your nerve system. It starts from your feet. It just cuts your airway. Basically, it paralyzes you, and that's how you die. Although, like, most people survive it, but it's a really crazy situation. So I end up getting paralyzed from this.
So you went from being on stage
4 days later.
4 days later to you can't move your legs.
Yep, paralyzed completely.
So you're basically a top athlete to basically dysfunctional.
Yep.
And so how'd that play out?
I remember the doctor says, I'm sorry, but it's gonna be a while. You are temporarily paralyzed. And I thought he was crazy. I'm like, no, I'm not paralyzed. Like, how could I be paralyzed? I drove myself here. I didn't believe him. And they did all kinds of tests. So then, it got worse. I think it hit me like maybe a week later that this is reality, when I couldn't get up to go do anything. I couldn't move. I tried to move my legs. It felt like a separation between, my brain
and your body.
My mind keeps saying like everything is moving, but my body is not responding. Anyways, to make the story short, I had to be in the hospital for a long time, and I had to learn how to walk.
Should have learned to walk. There's crazy. Go follow her too, and we'll say at the end, Semfit. What's your Semret, and we'll talk about that. And but if you follow, you'll see. I remember you sending me pictures of you. Yeah. I'm not even joking. One day it was like you were on stage, and then it seemed like a month later you were at a rehabilitation center, and you were hunched over and you could barely get up, and you were shaking. You were so excited because you took your first step.
Yeah. I literally had to learn how to walk, which was like, talk about being in your lowest. I think that was my lowest.
That's crazy. I know.
Yeah, and but in my mind when I was in the hospital, because doctors, I love science, I do, but there's the disconnect sometimes with some doctors. They just say stuff and they walk away. And every time they would come and tell me, you need to be patient. It's going to take you time. Like, 2 years, 3 years. And I was like, no way. I couldn't see myself being paralyzed for that long. It drove me nuts. So in my mind, every time I told myself, nope, every time the doctors, they come, I'm going to let them do what they do, but I'm not going to allow them to be in my heart. I refuse to accept me being paralyzed for that long, how many long. So I told my doctor, I said, Dr. Neal, I'm in ICU bed. I kid you not. He came one morning to just talk to me. I was like, guess what? In December 2017, at the same year that I was sick, I'm like, I'm going to do a show. Watch. I'm going to walk out from this hospital. I'm not going to be in a wheelchair. I refuse to be in a wheelchair. And he used to go along with me. He's like, okay, yeah, of course. He's probably thinking, she's crazy.
Yeah.
So I had to go to rehab. I had to do, I think, 3 weeks in rehab. In rehab, outpatient, I did maybe a year and a half. But in 6 months, once I did outpatient rehab, they sent me home to live with my parents because I can take care of myself. I had to be in a wheelchair, my worst nightmare, right? And I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to drive. I wanted to have my life back, and I couldn't. I was like so determined to get my life back. I did not care, whatever it was. I lived and breathed every day see me. I like had this vision in my head, keep playing, that I was gonna walk, I was gonna do, I was gonna compete again. I don't know, don't ask me why. I just had that vision in my head. Like, that's the radio I play constantly, me seeing myself doing the same thing that I did before I got sick. And of course, I moved in with my parents for 3 weeks. It drove me nuts. I loved them, but I was ready to have my own place, my apartment. So I told my doctor, I was like, I need to be on my own. I can take care of myself, which I wasn't ready. I was falling. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was not safe, but I needed to feel independent again. So I moved back to my apartment. I started taking Uber to the gym. Do you remember?
I was just going to say, I've been waiting to say it. She would show up to the gym with her damn cane.
No, walker.
Did you have the walker first?
Yes.
I just remember your cane shaking around, walking around all slow. I'd be like, dude, she needs to go home. Like, and you'd be like, no, I'm doing it. And you would just be so slow doing the certain little workouts with no weight, just barely doing it, going through it. You're like, I'm going to be back. You'll see. You'll see. And then it went from the walker, I guess, to the cane. And then I remember you'd leave the cane in the corner of the gym and you'd go and you'd walk around. Yeah. And then you'd go back and grab it because you're like, I'm getting more and more. And then I remember one time you showed up without, you're like, I didn't bring the cane.
Yes.
I'm at the gym now.
Yeah.
You were limping a little bit. You had to grab walls, but you're like, I'm not taking the cane no more.
I was so determined. I was going to do everything in my power to have my life back. And I met this also. After that, I did that. And then I met a friend of mine, started going to this glute lab gym. And she's like, hey, ask Brett Contreras to see if he can take you in. And I'm like, I'm disabled. I have cane. How could somebody so fit will be able to take me with these girls who are fit? And I messaged him and I said, I told him, hey, this is my condition. This is where I am. Is it okay if I can come work out with you guys? He was so kind. He was like, please come anytime. I remember he says, come and look at it and see. And I walked in with my cane, and all you see is hot chicks, fit girls, and just doing all kinds of squats and, hip thrusts. And I was like,
do they have booties?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. All I heard was Booty
it's
Lab.
called-
I don't know what's.
It is Booty Lab.
Oh, okay. Booty
yes,
Lab.
they do. They're
Okay.
all beautiful.
I'm going to check that place out.
You should. And so I walked in, and I'm with my cane, and he was like, so what do you think? Of course, I'm like, I want to train.
Right there.
Yeah. And so he hold my hand, walking, like literally. I like obstacles. For me, I can't, if I see something too close to me, my body starts to shake, I lose balance. But he had helped me, encouraged me. Just being around them gave me the motivation even more. So I would go every week, train there, and then I told Brett, I was like, guess what? I'm going to sign up for a show for December. He was like, you are? And he was like, you could do it. I signed up for a show.
That's crazy.
And for December 7th, 2018. And he was like, you could do it, Sam. And I signed up for a show, and I did a show for the first time in muscle contest. I was so excited. Of course, I met my husband around that time, too.
Was that local show, the
Yes,
first one?
San Diego,
Okay.
And I did it. I wanted to see myself on the stage, what I was telling myself when I was in the hospital bed. And when I did it, I just felt, even though I still have issues with my legs and neuropathy pain and stuff, but I just felt like, oh my gosh, anything is possible. If I can come out of my basically being dead, think about that, to be on a stage competing again, I was like, there's nothing that we can't do in life as long as you're breathing,
Yep.
And then I did my first show, and I get a message on Instagram saying, hey, there is a show in Georgia. You should compete. You might get your pro card. It's a first show opening. And I told now my husband, then were you my fiance? I don't even know. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do a show in Georgia. Of course, he won't say no. He was like, oh, okay. I had no idea it was Georgia, thinking like Georgia in America.
I remember you telling me the story. I was dying.
I was like, oh, good. So one day he was like, where's in Georgia? I was like, Georgia.
Yeah. Like, okay, that's a state. Where at?
And then he was like, is it the country? I was like, there's a country, Georgia? What do you mean? He looked it up. He's like, yes, it's in Europe. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's in Europe. It's not here. I messaged the person. Is it in Europe? He was like, oh, yeah, Georgia. I'm like, oh, but I knew that I wanted to do the show, even though it's in Europe. In my heart, like I always follow my intuition. I didn't feel afraid. I felt like the same. I was meant to do the show.
Yeah.
And I told Robert, I was like, babe, I'm going to do it. And he was like, okay. I booked my ticket. I went to Georgia, this
By yourself.
by myself, this old Georgia, and I don't know, it used to be part of Russia, I think.
Yeah.
And I think on that plane, I was the only black person. They were all white. I walked in, I was like, well, I'm here. And I did it. I walked in. I remember I got to my hotel. There's not that many people. And there were coming athletes maybe the next day. And I just keep saying, you know what? It's not me. I felt like there's something beyond me that's making me do this, and it's God. You know, for me, I was like, this was meant for me to do it. I didn't care if I become a pro, but I had to show up. I had to be there, right? And I walked and I on the stage. I honestly didn't think I was gonna win. I thought another girl would win. And I remember when they called my name, and I thought I had this out-of-body experience, and I was like, wait, what? Is this real? And they came and they give you the crown and the sword and stuff. Sorry. And I was like, oh, wait, what? I am IFBB Pro. My dream to, I worked so hard since 2013.
Yep.
It took me this long, right? It was just, I did it. I became an IFBB Pro.
That's crazy.
After all that, and I came home, and of course, like, Robbie was so proud of me, and I was just so excited. I was like, wow, I'm so happy. And so now then I was like, I'm home. Like, everybody was like, wait, what? You went to Georgia? Where is it? In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. How many hours was that flight?
I think it was like 24 it took me, because I had layover and stuff.
Oh my God. And then you went out there, won, got back on a flight, came back.
I sure did. That was my whole purpose. And it was the most incredible, amazing feeling. But have I not gone there, I wouldn't be, maybe I wouldn't be IFBB before. I don't know. But that's the thing, is like, in life, we all have some things that somehow divine God, whatever, universe, just take you there.
Yeah.
You know? And I was willing to go that far too.
That's an incredible story. And it doesn't even end there, because shortly after you returned, you were married or pregnant first?
No, so I was training to do my first debut as a pro.
Okay.
Working out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a show. And Robert went to Europe, and then I was getting sick, and I was like, what is it? I still have the pain, and I was like, it's not the Guillain-Barré, it's not the neuropathy. I just felt so sick, and it's a different feeling. And I called him in Europe, and I was like, I don't feel good. And he's like, just rest. You're working out too much. Why don't you take the day off and rest? And then the next day, something just told me, let me just take this pregnancy test.
Yeah, and you were pregnant.
Surprise!
Which is that, I think that, though, honestly, I know we've talked about all these things, but I honestly, from knowing you your whole life, I think the baby was probably your biggest accomplishment.
Oh my God, by far. Are you kidding?
Because that's all you ever talked about since I met you. Is you're gonna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby.
Yes, forever. Everyone that knows me, I was like, I want a baby. I want a baby. I love having a family. That's like, I think part of it is because all the things that happened to me in my life, I needed a sense of like family accomplishment in a way, like to make me feel like the void, like my mom is not here. I love my parents, don't get me wrong. But like what I had, my security blanket at home growing up with so much love, and my family, that was gone immediately to come to America. And then what I thought I would have, I don't have it anymore. And so for me, like, I love children. I wanted to be a mother. And when I find out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God, Lord, every prayer that I've ever did, you bless me with a child. At times I thought maybe I won't be able to have a baby, because one doctor told me that I might not be able to have it, so I had that, a little bit of a doubt in the back of my mind, saying maybe it won't happen for me, maybe I have to do infertility or something like that. And for me, after all that I've been through, to have it naturally, like, is just the biggest blessing in my life.
That's awesome. And then I know you got married to Robert, who's a cool dude. And so we know you've accomplished all of this. I want to know, honestly, what's next?
What's next? And so of course, I had my baby daughter, Delina, 6 months ago. And I told Robert, I was like, I'm going to do a show. And I couldn't do exercise right away because I had C-section. I had to wait. But I signed up for a show right before coronavirus happened. And then, of course, things change. So now, next is going to be basically to do a show in August after a baby. And, of course, anyone could do it, right? So this is strictly for me, but I wanted to give hope to a woman, first of all, who couldn't have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like she's never going to be able to have that, to not give up, you know? Everything that ever happened to me in my life could happen to anyone, but not giving up hope and faith, having faith in God for me, like just to continue to push towards your goal and not stop, even through obstacles, you know?
That's awesome.
And
what about your, so you started Semret Fitness?
Yes. So I'm doing an online training and, you know, selling products on my website, semretrussom.com.
Wait, slow down. What is it?
Semretrussom.com.
Okay.
And so I do one-on-one and online training. I have clients, you know, all over, really, in Europe, especially people from my country.
Yeah.
They're always, you know. So I wanted to empower women, like how I'm feeling right now. I want them to feel that way. I want them to be strong physically, but the fitness thing that gives you, it empowers you, right? It gives you a sense of accomplishment, but it gives you, I don't know, an inside strength, right? And if you can accomplish through fitness, you can accomplish anything, right? And you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want to instill in people. I want to pass and, you know, generation to come through fitness to empower women and give them hope.
That's awesome. So the name of the show, before we get going, the name of the show is There's a Difference. And again, I highlight people that have made a difference. But I also, my question to you for the audience is, what do you think the difference is between you and everyone else that's came here, immigrants, anyone that, what do you think the difference in you is that you think, what do you think's made the difference?
I think my discipline, what discipline for others might not be the same what's discipline for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, being disciplined on everything that I do, and no matter what life hits you, to be disciplined and not to gear away from your.
Don't deviate. Stay on it.
Just keep going until you get there. It doesn't matter how long it takes you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Where can they find you if they want to find you?
Facebook on Semret Russom, Instagram Semret. Actually, it's SEM and then R Fit on Instagram. I have YouTube, Semret Russom as well.
YouTube is coming up. If they want to find your clothes, they go to your website.
Yes.
And I know that you'll be having a podcast coming up as well, and a documentary.
Yes.
So a lot of stuff, a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you. Again, you guys go follow her. If you can't find it, go to my page. She's on there. You can find her, follow all her stuff. She's very inspiring. She's very motivational. And I just want to thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm excited to see what happens.
Thank you. Me too.
All right,
I'm so
guys.
proud of you.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will see you guys soon.